Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. DB333, and welcome back to the new campaign trail. Now, it's been a long, long while without you, my friend. I'll tell you all about it when I see you again, which is right now. Taking a break for a bit. Work. I can't say school anymore because I'm not going to school. Work, personal stuff. But work is done for the season, so I have some more time. And I knew that almost immediately what I wanted to come back to. As ladies and gentlemen, it is here. Well, it's been here for a bit. I'm behind badly. But the new mod from the team who made W is here. Things that never were. This is a lot of things. This is one of the best mods I've played in a long, long while. This is the most interesting storytelling I've seen in the new campaign trail. And this is a story. This is a story about the leading characters of mid-century American life. It's not events as they happened. It is about an America that lived through the summer of '68, the violence of Vietnam, and the mismanagement of Johnson. It is one where people could tell themselves that the embers of liberal optimism still burned, that America's children need not perish at home and abroad. It is a story about Robert Kennedy. He believed he understood what America, the real America, cried out for. He understood that the people had been abandoned by a White House more invested in inter-party machinations than the burdens of war. Kennedy dreamed of a better tomorrow. He sided with love over hate, with peace over war. He would fight, not for the few, but we, the people. And with his victory over the doubters, he would demonstrate the American dream could still triumph. This is the truth as he believed it to be. It is a story he told with absolute devotion. We are nothing without stories, and so we invite you to believe as he did, if only for a moment. But we ask that you believe in things that never were. The curtain rises. A stage divided in two halves, joined by the suggestion of marble columns. The scene is non-realistic, exaggerated. The lighting is dim and poetic. Images of chaos and uncertainty are projected onto the performers as two scenes play out simultaneously. At stage left stands Bobby Kennedy, surrounded by the trappings of power. An American flag, a desk, a telephone. It is minimalist, hollow. He does not face the audience, but instead a large painting of John F. Kennedy. As he stares, his phone begins to flash. He does not move to answer. On the right side of the stage sits Rogers Morton, RNC chairman, a symbol of decline. His leather-backed chair is worn, his black rotary phone chipped. Overheard are a set of faded paintings. Lincoln, Roosevelt, Eisenhower. An empty space is left for a successor who never came. Morton's head is in his hands. When the phone begins to ring, he appears paralyzed. The images intensify. The phones screech. Now impossible to ignore, the two men move to answer. Hello? Before we continue, here's the W team. Oh, this is cool, by the way. We have Mangolith, main coder. And we have the writing people. Shout out to all of them. They all did a fantastic job. Kudos to them all. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the star of the show, Bobby Kennedy, President of the United States, a mass of contradictions. He is an agent of the shadows and a magnetic and hypnotizing performer. He oversaw integration of the South and is a figure of white rage. He's an anti-establishment icon and princeling, a hawkish stove, a radical liberal, a popular loner. He has no great legislative legacy, he has founded no great institutions, and yet embodies in himself the possibility of redemptive change. The performer playing this role should be able to capture Kennedy's intensity, his adolescence, self-aggrandizing conviction that he alone must end an inherited war, heal a fractured party, undo his predecessor's welfare system, and shepherd a nation still trying to decide if it should grow past the traumas of the previous decade or regress to an earlier age. While disguised by constant simmering rage, Bobby's most essential characteristic is a deep loneliness, spurred by a fear that allowing others in will only bring him more hurt. Ideal performer for this role is a male in their mid-40s in the tenor range. Hey, Bob, it's kind of O'Donnell, returning your call on the upcoming cycle. Yeah? Rough business. You're winning on personality right now, but, well, I'm looking at the numbers, and I think the honeymoon period is over. Between the economy, Vietnam, people don't see who's in control. Christ. What do you suggest? To get the numbers up? Want her to get some more accomplishments under your belt. Ease up on the sermons. Maybe make nice with the usual critics. Hoover, Bird. Look, I'm not trying to smoke up your ass. Winning her will be tough. Jack would never have had these problems, you know. Well, here we go. Do winner take all. We'll do normal, difficult, Eve, and continue. Let's take a look at the map. So, the issues we have are fatigue, outrage, culture, ethos, and Vietnam. Looking pretty decent for us at the start, but could be better. Could be worse, but could be better. It is not a fair world. If it were, you wouldn't be sitting in the Oval at all. You'd be helping Jack organize his papers after 8 years as president. It wouldn't matter if it were Johnson, right nowadays, or hell, Nixon in the White House. It wouldn't be your problem, but here you are. If it cannot be a fair world, you are determined to make it a just one. The question is how. Though it's been a year since your inauguration, you've gotten little done legislatively. In fact, the LBJ-loving sycophants, fucking vermin, on the Hill won't let you forget. They're so sure you won't get anything done. How do you put the bastards in their place? When I was Attorney General, I brushed shoulders with those FBI boys more times than I can count. Be sitting down. They owe me. I'll rummage through what we've got in those sleaze bags on the Hill. Make them beg not to let it go public. Expected Hoover's good old boys refuse to give you anything that might compromise their friends down south. What they give instead are 350 pages on printing losers like Eugene McCarthy. Doesn't get politics. A man too stupid and self-obsessed to be blackmailed. All you're left with is a thinner line between you and Edna Hoover. You know Nixon and South Vietnam tried to fuck you in '68. Still, you vowed then to figure out a peace settlement in Indochina to succeed where Johnson failed. And you aren't about to give up. As America crawls into 1970, you get word that the North wants to delay talks until the South hosts re-elections. The South, meanwhile, just had a coup to toss out two and his cronies. One that you exerted a little effort to stop. It's all up to you to figure out America's new posture in the region. How will you force these petulant, whining children together without compromising on your principles? Oh, I need to show off the file real quick. Hold on. So these are everyone who we have to deal with right now. So here's the home front, everyone working against us internally. So we have J. Edgar Hoover. So worked on mining your toils ever since you were Attorney General. Given your commitment to justice, you expect far longer. If anything at all is clear, he must go. Bob McNamara. We have Robert Byrd. We have John Connolly. George Wallace. Eugene McCarthy. Not massive threats. Well, probably these guys. And then the battle front we have Nelson Rockefeller. We'll get little tips on how to fight all these guys, which is pretty cool. Tips on how to Reagan, Agnew, Lindsay, Percy, Goldwater, and Rockefeller. Now, we are not going to be going after any of these gentlemen today. We will get there when we get there, though. In the meanwhile, the way I see it is we just tore down the scaffolding. We're not asking the flimsy new government to stand on its own. After all we've done, it'd be sunk costs continue progressive withdrawal while leaving the citizens of the South as prey to the North. Till the regime can follow through with its responsibilities, we'll just have to have our boys protect the South until they can protect themselves. Your kingdom was penetrated by McNamara's wise man, bearing charts, showing frivolous data to assure you make the right choice. You can't help but ponder if Jack would have taken the stand. Let's go to Ohio. We managed to placate most of the domestic opposition to Vietnam due to your sympathies joining America's engagement in the conflict. Your administration has remained complicit in painting over the impulses of the American war machine. You blankly stare at photographs now in front of you. They're a set of Son Mai. American forces committed an atrocity that left just over 500 civilians dead. Secretary McNamara previously been of assistance in preventing the story from making it to the presses, but as the war continues to demand more from your government, explicit efforts to control these domestic narratives have become unrealistic. I've traveled this nation. I've met with the people when I look into their faces, I know they won't be able to bear the news. They can't handle the heartbreak. They shouldn't be burdened with the knowledge of this heinous crime. I'll take this thing out of Mac's hands to do whatever it takes to make sure this story doesn't reach people. From anonymous threats to unfriendly columnists to routine trash burnings in the Pentagon, the task force you set up pounces on anything resembling a leak. You finally feel at ease when you sanction layoffs in the State Department, relying on an official dissent channel that you had set up to let staffers express dissent without fear of reprisal. Well, we're doing okay in Vietnam. We are gaining ground, at least, which is good. During the 1968 campaign, America's GNP soared even as the ranks of the poor swelled. You ask your crowds what should be done about the growing disparities. Unsure yourself, all you know is that you could not look at any more images of starving, rat-bitten children. Today, your Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, Daniel P. Moynihan, well-meaning, surely, has an answer. Instead of relying on Lyndon's dozens of welfare programs, America can reach its poor with a simple negative income tax. It helps working families and tax increases that punish able-bodied, lazy persons. Moynihan claims that this reduces bureaucratic waste and rewards those who work. It's also likely to have broad support on the Hill. Well, after Jack passed, I found myself revisiting his journal. He had indexed so many wonderful ideas, and I truly think that this is the kind of bill that would move him, that embodies his spirit. I shall direct our congressional allies to put this bill on my desk at the nearest convenience. Opposition from Republicans was expected. Operation from the SCLC was not. You feel a deep sense of outrage as they accuse your good friend Moynihan of racism, as they claim this bill will disproportionately benefit poor whites and strip black families who struggle to find work, as they claim this bill shreds the ambition of a new frontier and great society. Ignore their belly aching and force congressional liberals to vote for the damn bill. When it arrives on your desk, you feel the full weight of your pen. This is what Jack would have wanted, you tell yourself. Right? Yeah, right. Let's go to Texas. Progress on the war has been frustrating. This progress on the has been I think it's supposed to be as frustrating as progress on the domestic front. With withdrawal plans delayed, the intelligence agencies have briefed you on large movements along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the surge in North Vietnamese fighters training and equipping their Southern comrades. Pentagon top brass are convinced it's for something big, as the war in the South bleeds into Laos and Cambodia. McNamara wants you to stay the course and give him more time, but Schlesinger is convinced that bold action is necessary, including incursions into Cambodia, even if it goes around Congress. Do you agree? Guy's just trying to get us to save his ass again. That's who these maps are coming from, isn't it? They've got it all wrong this whole war. They missed Tet too, and I don't want to be caught flat-footed. General Taylor, you take the lead on this. Give me something real. CIA takes time in gathering intelligence from its own extensive network of spies inside Southeast Asia. The situation grows dire, with highly visible attacks in Saigon making the nightly news. When Taylor finally reports back, you don't even need to read his briefing to know it's spiraling beyond your control. Uh-oh. Well, we've had a few national successes, at least. The economy's doing terrible, though. Goddamn. After the euphoria of your victory, liberals were given a splash of cold water when Congress got back to work. On the same month of your inauguration, your allies in the Senate were dealt a major upset when Maine's Edmund Muskie lost the vote for Majority Whip to West Virginia's Robert Byrd. As your friends agonize over his positions, you can't stop but thinking about his steadfast opposition to Jack in 1960. As you see it, Byrd's history of antagonism to all things Kennedy could threaten the White House's policy goals if he isn't dealt with properly. I think we can reason with the man. He crawled up from a dirt farm to get where he is. We have a lot in common. He must want influence, so where's the harm in flirting with a court appointment? It's not like he'd actually take it. The distance between Byrd begins to shrink at an astronomical speed. While these shallow political games break the hearts of the most committed liberals across the country, you notice routine bills start moving faster through the Senate faster. That's what I'm talking about. Let's head back to Texas. Less pressing, though far more personal, of your problems is your years-long feud with Mr. Hoover of the FBI. The scoundrel has had liberals like you in Congress on the ball by the balls for years, and you haven't been silent to your allies in the Attorney General's office as to why. J. Edgar Hoover is a homosexual. And if you're going to make any headway to get that fairy and his goons out of the hot seat, you'll need some hard evidence to prove it. Well, catch him in the act if we can. He's one of the most well-respected men in America. If we can't face him directly, let's make that cocksucker sweat. It doesn't have to be much, but just start keeping tabs on the man of the house. While his staff isn't gutsy enough to stop tapping Hoover's wires, they start documenting that Mr. Clyde Tolson nervously scurries to Edna's office more and more through the coming weeks. The pressure's on. It's perhaps now just as ironic as it is painful to you that your support among representatives of the black community is in jeopardy, due in part to your over-reliance on Southern support. It doesn't take a genius to recognize that if you aren't at least drifting from your activist roots, they're certainly selling them out. Now, as representatives meet you at the White House for what you presume to be a mere press shoot, they want answers. Your 1968 campaign simply couldn't have gone anywhere without their support, so why aren't you supporting them? Jack took years to get the ball rolling on civil rights. He thought it'd be political suicide, but I talked him into it. This is a slow and frustrating promise, but they have my word. I will not make them regret putting faith into me. Rehashing your commitment to doing anything at all for civil rights is a good start and places you ahead of any feasible alternatives. However, there's doubt about you won't fade overnight due to your lack of a cohesive plan and rewriting of history. Chris, we'll just go to Texas. Before a sweltering summer. Let's see how we're doing. The economy shrinking, gaining ground at least. South is passive. Vietnam is hanging strong. Before sweltering summer, tensions across the country flare early as most loyal foot soldiers clash, confusingly, with your ethnic supporters. University students bloody themselves in the streets protesting with the continuation of amoral war in Vietnam as hardworking Irish, Italians, and Polish crack skulls quite literally with American flags. Nowhere is this outrage more pronounced than in New York City, where hundreds are reportedly injured from lunch hours alone. To prevent any further spilled blood and, of course, electoral consequences, you must mediate this crisis. Those protesters of both sides have forgotten what we as a country can be when we work together. However, the core message of the students makes sense. We need unity and we need peace. Our policy isn't going to waver, but I need to show them that I'm at least listening. Hanging on the verge of what's politically acceptable, you meet with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, two virgins. You can hardly hear what John has to say over the three record players spinning Give Peace a Chance asynchronously. What you do hear fills your heart as he informs you for the first time he wouldn't vote Republican if he could. Well, it's all coming along at least. Lyndon Johnson persuaded Americans that economic liberalism meant that with the firm guidance of the president, the economy could grow and grow forever and ever with no limit. The recent recession has shaken Americans' faith in that dream. Rising prices and a non-stop increase in prices at both the supermarket and the gas stations have left Americans confused and enraged. You liberals promised nothing like this could ever happen. White-collar workers nationwide are now taking to the streets, protesting the rise in prices and your failure to contain our inflation rate. How can we contain Wall Street's boiling rage? We have seen time and time again how the conditions at home inspire urban unrest of all kinds. I will absolutely find a way to stop inflation from destroying both our finances and our society. You've been pressing the point since before the 68 campaign, but American voters elected you to do something about our rotting institutions. As prices rise, the stench of societal decay grows worse and worse. Christ. Ending the mindless menace of violence is just another entry of your long list of broken promises. Black America is still separate and unequal, trapped in ghettos, captured by white supremacy and viciousness. Nothing's changed since Johnson, and disasters at our doorstep again, as rioting's broken out in most of the major cities across the U.S. The cause is always the same ennui: frustration, mistrust, and your failures to rebuild the cities as you promised. The time for talking about why is over. What will you do? I made my reputation as America's chief law enforcement officer, and I won't abandon it. We cannot tolerate the wholesale destruction of our cities. Deploy the army and arrest anyone inciting this violence. The soldiers marching through Harlem make the headlines, but the real news comes from the whirlwind of arrests of major black radicals. An FBI shootout with Chicago Black Panthers decapitates the organization once and for all. Well, the public likes that. Although leaders in both major parties have attempted to temper expectations for the 1970s midterms, there is a clear tension in the air as the results begin to trickle in. It's a bust. It was always going to be a shit show. You knew that much. You pace through the room, frantic as one House race flips, and then incumbent senator falls. It's mind-racking. Democrats have managed to hold their own in the gubernatorial elections, at least. You need to change something for 72. Anything. Jesus, they're getting torn apart. We're getting punished for something out there. The people are angry as hell. If we don't figure out every little thing that contributed to this, it'll be us getting the boom 72. I want a full autopsy on this shit show. And don't sugarcoat it. It's a thick packet that doesn't pull many punches, explaining the unfortunate and gruesome deaths of the political careers of many House and Senate members. You look through like a hawk, preparing for a race still 2 years away. Let's do Texas. Judgment Day comes as the man who made you president, Secretary of State John Connally, has informed you of his intentions to leave administration come the end of the month. While he's just 3 inches taller than you, his swag dwarfs your own. You fear without a Southern man, and when within his own and major role, your administration will be exposed from all sides. Offended by his disloyalty, you've called John to be graciously willing to give the man a second chance. Who's going to reward me for being lenient with this prick? Never mind forgiveness. I've got to make sure he kisses the doormat on the way out, because there's no way he's ever getting within an inch of the White House again. John sits there and takes your restrained verbal outrage. The next day, the media rages with the intensity of 1,000 sons for disrespecting their darling segregationist. He was sure with his brains on Jack's suit all those years ago, as Kennedy loyalist Sergeant Shriver fills his post. According to you, the sham statistics pulled by the FBI, crime rose over last year rose 11%. What's worse is that they blame you for it. Hoover, the media, the right-wingers, they're sure you don't have the guts to do what is necessary to eradicate the moral rot. They underestimate you. Like they always have, but you don't have a trick up your sleeve. The past few months, the Southerners in Congress have grown fond of you. You could call them up right now and put an end to the disease devouring the country. Amputate the limb. The root of his disease is drugs, pot, heroin, LSD. They're consuming our young boys, both in the armed forces and in cities around the country. We'll get Congress to enact harsher penalties on the sellers, force treatment on the afflicted. Measured approach. You're irked when members of the press call it a war on drugs. You never want anything like that. The violence and militarism. It's about salvation, the soul. It's a message you stress with black community leaders. The only way to heaven is through suffering repentance. You know this in your heart of hearts. With your withdrawal plans scuttled again, opponents to the war have grown dismayed. Their high hopes for your administration have been swiftly dashed, even as you plead for more time to bring American troops home. With casualties still alarmingly high, the window for clean departure is rapidly closing. You can either rush through the end to the U.S. commitment to South Vietnam now, or double down and admit you're going to stay and fight. What is it? Kai keeps running behind our backs in these talks. That's the damn problem. He won't help us an inch. I'm tired of his shit. Tell him we're walking away from Paris, and that we're gonna start getting troops out now. If he decides he wants to be serious, he knows where to call us. McGovern and other congressional doves applaud what they describe as long overdue moves, but the chattering class, which has long praised their actions in Vietnam as responsible judicious, grow nervous. Are you ready to knock Kai off so soon after throwing two out? Regardless, McNamara informs the press that 50,000 troops will be out by the end of the month. UNRWA always used to think this was inevitable, but doesn't make it less of a crisis. The French are furious with American spending, and being infected with our inflation, are coming to collect their gold, as the Bretton Woods Agreement allows. This is Johnson's crisis. He lit money on fire for his harebrained schemes. He let the London gold pool collapse, and he left you to foot the bill. Solving this requires moving past his legacy, killing his inbred darlings. Where do we start? The Congress has its own planes, and that gives us cover. Fight them hard for the cameras, but let them take the knives out in private. We need to start cutting. House Republicans pushed through a major bill cutting spending to the bone, abandoning preschoolers, immigrants, the unemployed. You sign it, telling the press that there was no other alternative, and pledging to fight them in the future. Of course. J. Edgar Hoover spent 47 years terrorizing the American public while living a life of excess and immorality. Now it seems like the old bastard's time might have run out. Over the weekend, a housekeeper found Hoover unconscious after suffering a heart attack, though you doubt he had a heart to begin with. Now he lives in a hospital rotting while his partner, Clyde Tolson, manages the bureau. With the tyrant away from his throne and washing a flutter of concerns about the septuagenarian director, now is your opportunity to act. Fire his ass, then crucify the cocksucker by releasing everything we have on him. We'll salt the fields, build atop the ashes. The reports come gushing out. The relationship with Tolson, the young men in his office, the blackmail. In an instant, Hoover goes from a pillar of American law to a joke, a freak. Senators trip over themselves to say they always opposed Edna, while resignations of the FBI's top brass fill the headlines. The Bureau is yours to remake in your image. Oh, here he is. Out of all the files and various opponents you collected over the years, Hughes was not among them. It's something of a miracle, the businessman who'd taken the GOP by storm, but it's a passing fad. The administration is like a Russian family fleeing over the snow pursued by wolves, says one of your economists as he gestures to the charts erected in your private office. Rising prices and unemployment. Rumors of a European run on U.S. gold reserves. We need to throw some babies to slow down the wolves. You purse your lips. Always another crisis. Always some new fucking problem. If it had been Jack instead of Johnson before you, these economic troubles would have been distorted. The only good thing is that with a Democratic Congress, you likely have the power to sort this mess out. The shit could blow up in my face if we don't act. I'll talk to Bud directly. We'll get him to greenlight price controls for a few months. Take some heat off the economy. Bird stares at you with mock alarm. No. What you're describing is socializing the economy. Good God, it's almost Soviet. You're forced to leave with nothing. Later you see Bird joke with a TV reporter about a new Kennedy cocktail. Everything's the same, except it costs 15% more. Fucking traitor. Everyone is feeling the squeeze these days, and that includes those cooks in Congress. While our patchwork response to the international crisis has been implemented, many fresh faces trying to make a name for themselves are raving about how that just wasn't enough. Representative Weinberger of California is one of those nuts whose congressional office has taken to stocking up glasses of jelly beans for every $1,000 we run in deficit. While hollow gestures inspired a showdown on the floor to challenge our agenda's spending goals, as public sentiment seems to creep their way. Economics just seems too easy to these morons. It's best we teach them a lesson. What is this, primary school? We've done all we can. I'll be damned if some play prop stands between a family being able to have a good meal at the end of the day or not. Trash this place. Some Columbia kids get paid off to rough around the representative's office, eventually smashing into the jars, spilling beans everywhere. Called the resident advisors enough to spell Weinberger the embarrassment as he tries to string together a clever metaphor on the floor. Well, we're not doing very well right now. Not that it was ever in doubt, George Wallace has yet again taken upon himself to run for president as a third-party candidate. Lashing against your ultra-liberal administration and claiming you've been a president for the coastal elite, he is once again expected to take a large swath of the vote, with multiple states in tow, dragging your economic platform and demonizing your anti-American race agenda. He continues on his crusade against the Democratic Party. Wallace has made a career off of stepping on people's toes. But has he ever thought about what'll happen if he goes against someone with more power than him? Send him a message, a threat, that he should tread lightly from now on, for the sake of the nation. Continue to watch as he saunters throughout the country, decrying administration. He is firmly ignored you, although sources from inside his campaign confirm the governor was shaken by your words. Oh, how you hate him. Let's go back to Cali. Undoubtedly still livid over what he believes was the theft of his presidency at your hands, the Minnesotan mystic Eugene McCarthy has announced an independent run for the presidency. American forces still in Vietnam and a complete withdrawal seeming untenable. McCarthy will presumably act as an heir to your most energetic base of support, the youth. While not a serious contender in his own right, you know he must be crushed if the parties to stay united when facing off against the true enemy this November. We've got on it enough on him over the years. At this point, he's just asking for us to release it all. I want him utterly destroyed. Drag everything out and destroy him. Files turned over to you by the FBI months ago managed to make their way to the public thanks to friends and the press. Soon enough, McCarthy is implicated in the Yippie plots to kidnap and threaten Democratic delegates in the '68 convention, thanks to some inspired retelling of events. Pleading his innocence, a longtime opponent of the security state bends to its will and drops out of the race. This month's cover of Time magazine is a young lieutenant family acquaintance, John Kerry, speaking before Congress in his uniform, having just tossed to the medals you pin on his chest over the fence of the White House. Growing anti-war GI movement is gaining steam as your withdrawal plans are stalled. This is not only a PR war, but an actual one, with fraggings of COs spiking in South Vietnam and revolts at military bases in the Pacific increasing. How do you want to reverse this plunging morale? Well, we've got a massage to the public. That much is clear. If I can get on television and tell the networks that we hear the concerns of these soldiers and understood their pain, maybe this can go away. The network news anchors are interviewing you are dazzled, reporting back to their studios that they left the White House impressed, though not totally satisfied. The anti-war GIs, however, more militant than ever, announcing the large-scale protests of it outside the DNC. All I can do is hope they fizzle out like every other group before them. Gaining from backlash administration and depressing economic outlook. Well, yeah, he is. Hack. Howard Hughes. Do you think there'd be something to say about a man who hasn't shown his face in well over 5 years? Just get this over with. Happened to Jack while campaigning for re-election. You can't help but feel it's going to be you next. Well, he stood blockaded in that school years ago. He made a permanent interview. Now's your chance to wipe him out for good. You watched the news, bemused. Republicans wanted an outsider during the primary, and after days of inconclusive balloting in Las Vegas, have settled on a man so outside the establishment he actually refused to attend the RNC. Business magnate Howard Hughes, represented instead by so-called publicist Clifford Irving. Hughes has been nominated in absentia alongside Bob Dole. The day has included speeches targeting your celebrity, your personality, and the cultural rot you represent. You struggle to keep a straight face. When told about that, the idea of a ghost beating you on matters of personality or spirituality is laughable. This election season will be a cakewalk. What a laugh. Do we really think the Americans are going to vote for a man who is all but allied with organized crime? A man who treats politicians like poker chips to buy and trade away? This isn't a serious nomination. This is a sad story of a party selling itself to the highest bidder. What is the law to the lawless? Nothing. Don't let Democrats speak to you about rules when they follow none, intones Irving beside an empty chair. Dole gives lip service to order after, but it doesn't matter. The hall is brought in. This god demands nothing but uncomplicated devotion, promising to send and plague onto the unbelievers. While he's largely taken a back seat over his first term, Vice President Russell Long, harmless drunk, has made it clear he wishes to be of some use to you from now on. His desire seems honest as he pitches you some different ways he could aid the re-election campaign. You can't help but feel bad for the poor guy. You've kind of shafted him the last 4 years after all. You throw him a bone. Have him go out there and rally Democrats out on the Hill for us. He knows them better than I do, and they certainly like him more. I'm sure he can do this right. He works hard to wrangle some members of Congress who had otherwise been running away from the White House's way of thinking. Sometimes they give him cold soldier, other times they mock his seemingly devalued role in the campaign trail. For the most part, though, he keeps leadership on their toes, refusing to let them get complacent. Here we are. Russell Long distinguishes himself as a failure the moment he entered the national stage. While liberals were willing to ignore his presence on the ticket as a necessary sacrifice for winning, the segregationist Scion proved incapable of holding up his end of the bargain. While Kennedy won the election, he did so without carrying any of the former Confederate states Long was supposed to win over. For this alone, Long was written off as dead weight before he had even assumed his position. These estimations proved correct. Over the last 4 years, the son of a fascist has moldered away in the Naval Observatory, playing no meaningful role in any of the administration's initiatives. Kept on the stage solely by inertia and spite, he is now little more than a piece of the battleground than a true character. Let's visit Texas. It's as if a bomb has gone off. The roaring echoes down the hall of the DNC in Wilmington. It scares the living shit out of you. News cameras invade your space as you ascend to the stage, delegates screaming, "Bobby, Bobby, Bobby," right into your ear. Situated up high, you can look down on the delegates from every state. They're screeching as one black delegate from New Jersey in unison with whites from Alabama. When they look to you, they see the Democratic legacy, a massive backdrop with Roosevelt, Truman, John, and Lyndon. Your acceptance speech isn't just to the halls and viewers at home, it's to the mantle of democracy. Over these past 4 years, we've made great progress in the strive for equality, not just in race or creed, but in the conditions of which we all live with one another. I want to ask the hall and the viewers at home to let us continue in this progress for another 4 years. You choke as "Let us continue" kisses your lips. Johnson's watching right over his shoulder, and Ward's drowned in a sea of applause. You're lost at sea. Something needs to break. The current situation cannot hold. George Wallace continues to be a plague on this race, just as he's been a plague on your entire career. From the University of Alabama, those schoolhouse doors that made him a household name, to the 1968 election, where he made it his mission to see you lose. He's done nothing but taunt you since day one. He can't keep doing this. Something has to give. That damned man. He's always had it out for me. Can't he just go away? Lord knows he'd be doing the world a favor. Campaigning in Detroit not too long after, Governor Wallace is struck and killed by a rogue assassin with 4 bullets. 3 in the chest, won the shoulder. The press chalked it up as another unfortunate example of urban crime. Your statement on the incident is unusually calm. And there he is, boys. Ross Perot. Computer boy thinks he has it all figured out. He can rip those bum states in the South. What's stopping him from taking his fraud scheme nationwide? We got McCloskey and Perot. Damn. Well, we're close in Texas. Let's try to push through Texas. There's something very wrong with his election cycle. Deeply wrong. The Bureau's man you've sent to rifle for years dirty laundry. You haven't been able to learn anything about this Hughes cocksucker's current dealings. Now, he has to have had some contact with RNC officials, but there's no evidence of any calls going in or out to his various residences. You've had men stationed outside his private office and seen no one go in or out these days. All the while, Hughes' aide Clifford Irving presents new missives from his employer about the economy, the war, and urban decay to infatuated reporters. You can't figure out any angle on these bastards or how they're coordinating. Is there a secret telephone line? A tunnel system? Are Soviets involved? What the fuck is going on? Enough of this inane bullshit. Kill the messenger. Who the fuck is this piece of shit Clifford Irving? And why the hell is he everywhere? Where did Hughes even find him? Irving has never been employed by any business connected to Hughes. He didn't even move to the States until last year. Irving's directives, missives, they're a sham. Hughes isn't refusing to show himself out of modesty. He has no ties with the campaign waged under his name. You stare stunned at the file in your hand. The file has already been copied and sent to every newspaper in the country. It might as well be a bomb. Irvin has fled with millions in campaign cash. Dole is facing calls to resign for his alleged complicity. The RNC is exploring emergency options to do something to escape this all-consuming disaster, but find themselves restrained by a base that's gone feral. Many do want to believe that the Hughes that's been campaigning is a hoax. They want to believe that this embodiment of the American dream is real, that he cares, that he has the answers. They mutter on talk radio about how you've weaponized the system against them. Hughes can save them if they believe. The only surefire way to destroy this trick of mass marketing is to force the real Hughes into the open, to end his seclusion. How do you tear the sheet off the ghost? Hughes once made a big stink about nukes. Hates them. He's been offering sacks of cash to shut down the testing site outside Vegas. Well, how about this? We won't just expand subterranean testing. We'll bring back the atmospheric test. Tell his people we'll irradiate the entire shithole until he crawls out of his nest. Hughes' response is immediate and one of utter panic. He will show himself. He will end his farce. You congratulate yourself, but even you are not ready for what emerges. A ragged suit, rotten teeth that hang from the gums, limp hair that fall down in his back, and fingernails that corkscrew. This is not the American dream. It's a nightmare. Jesus Christ. This Pete McCloskey. It's one of the things his party is irreconcilably damaged, but selfishly cannot swallow the cinnamon and fall in line for you. Well, let's try to put him down. In Vermont. The nation lurches from one day to the next. You try your best to minimize the horror, to compartmentalize it. The Hughes affairs you describe as a manifestation of your opposition's dead-end obstructionism and nothing more. There was a result of a Republican Party that had forgotten its roots, that had been taken over by confidence men. You turn your chin up and give a grin that conveys not confidence, but a kind of brittle anxiety. It seems the whole country feels the same. Though your re-election is no longer in doubt, many are questioning if it matters anymore. What kind of country would allow this contest to take place? What was it all for? Look, this nonsense is beneath us. Pour some money down, Val, to make sure Republicans suffer in November, but I'm not worrying about anything other than my next inaugural address. Under your attack, every Republican from Clifford Case to Strom Thurmond looks vulnerable. You could celebrate the loss of so many enemies if it weren't for the fact that the country itself seems to be wasting away. Projections for turnout drop even lower. The election seems less like a solemn occurrence and more like a cruel joke. What will happen if your opposition ever nominates someone who isn't a joke? Who might exploit this spiritual sickness when you're gone? You force yourself into a parade of celebrations to commemorate your imminent win. Interviews with Ethel, sailing boats in Hyannis Port, baseball games and state dinners. The press note your rictus grin, your jagged enthusiasm, your right-knuckled determination to get through all this tawdry sentimentality. When will you break, they mutter. When will you admit that this is no real win and that you have no real mandate? You're determined not to let the bastards see you bleed, but each day it becomes harder to prevent your guts from spilling out through your fingers. You sought this office because you thought you could embody the nation's yearning for redemptive change. But what have you actually changed? Whose souls have you redeemed? No one's. Not a single goddamn soul has been saved. All of this has meant nothing. Polling places sit empty. Reruns of Gunsmoke play instead of election night coverage. Not a single person can bring themselves to care about this final victory of liberalism over the Republican Party. You are among them. Election night is here. Make a wish, Bobby. Well, that's that. The White House was strangely quiet in the days after Bob Kennedy's victory over Howard Hughes. Their usual statements to the press, congratulatory letters arrived from abroad. His allies toasted to his success with speeches prepared weeks prior, speeches that made no acknowledgement of the calamitous end of the election. Bobby Kennedy sat through all of these. He forced himself not to squirm. He tried to accept these kind words at face value. He spent long nights listening to the messages left on his office phone. It's where he found himself weeks after the campaign on November 20th, his birthday. Hello, Mr. President. Gerald Ford. I wanted to call on the occasion of your birthday to wish my best to you and your wife. I understand it's been some time since our last conversation back when I was still in the house, but with the state my party is in, you thumb the skip button on this recorder before agitation can overwhelm him. Tape welding machine. Mr. President, it's Bob Dole. I was wondering if you had received my letter about pardons for this Irving fella. This Irving business. It's clear that all of us got put in a bad spot, but it's Irving and Morton's fault as opposed to the whole lot. It would be magnanimous if the president let out an involuntary snarl. He jammed the machine harder. The tape rattled the machine. There was a squeaking of gears before the next message plays. Robert, this is Dick Nixon. Listen, this whole Hughes business is a terrible thing for everyone. I'm sure I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I want to talk to you about ways we could all come together as a country. Oh, and Pat says happy birthday. He hit the machine so hard that something snapped within the machine. Gears grinded against one another. Black ribbon poured outward as an acritic smell filled his office. Robert walked around his desk with a yank and pulled the cord free from the wall. The grinding ceased and the room lapsed into silence. He stood there, head down, cord in his hand. He felt on the verge of a frenzy. For 2 years he had tried to prove himself. He'd done everything right after the calamity of the midterms. He had tried his hardest to salvage the Democratic Party from disrepute. Instead of an opponent, the Republican Party had sent him a scammer wearing the face of a dying man. He had sent him Clifford Irving, who offered no full-throated defense of conservatism, but a collection of cheap tricks and gimmicks. Celebrity. Tabloid gossip. This was supposed to be an election to prove himself and show he could save the nation's soul. Instead, he had gotten lucky opposing a huckster. He had become the victor of the lowest turnout election in American history. He felt as scammed as everyone else. He dropped the cord and walked across the room to the painting of his brother Jack, head down, arms crossed. For much of the presidency, he looked at this portrait as a source of solace. Now all he could focus on were the individual brushstrokes. It, too, was not the real thing, only an imitation. It had nothing of his brother's real dimensions. It knew nothing of his tragedies, how he'd spent the last few hours of his life. He could still remember getting a call from his brother Ted almost 9 years ago. He'd been staring at the mass of cheery birthday cards in his garbage bin as his brother wept through the phone. I'm so sorry, Rob. I'm so sorry. In Dallas, they say in Dallas he was... Oh, Robert. Bobby. Oh, Bobby, I'm sorry. He was not alone in his office. Though he had not moved from his spot before the painting, he was aware of something shifting behind him. A figure sitting in his chair behind his desk. There was a groan of movement. I was a man once too, you know. I had a name. Then they took it away from me. Bobby said nothing. He kept his eyes fixed firmly on the painting. It felt as though someone had turned a bright spotlight over him. Sweat poured down his back. They did the same to your brother. They didn't even wait until his body was cold. They used his image in ways he couldn't even imagine. He remained frozen, even his eyes searched around frantically for help. Instead, he was greeted by more strangeness. His office no longer looked real. It looked cheap, tacky. You could see the blurry outline of a paper American flag. Instead of his walls back office, there was a yawning blackness from which 1,000 watching people could be seen. It'll be sooner than you think. They'll use you up until there's nothing left. Then you'll just be another image on a wall. Just like... He grabbed the pole holding the flag and turned, yelling. He was aware of the crowd beyond his reach, leaning forward. He raised the flag over his head, ready to strike it. There was no one left. A single small cake sat on his desk. Candles blazed. 47 candles for 47 years. Written in icing on the top was a single phrase. Happy birthday, Bobby. He took a nervous step towards his desk. The stage on which he was standing seemed deathly quiet. He set the flagpole down against the edge of the prop desk. "Make a wish," said a voice in his head. "Make it a good one. Try not to blow it." His head swam. He leaned forward. He looked strangely and sickly illuminated beneath the candlelight. Hope for something better. Bobby stared into the candles. Then, before he could stop himself, he blew. Things that never were. Robert Kennedy, played by Robbie McDowell. Ethel Kennedy, played by Julie Andrews. Howard Hughes / Clifford Irving, played by Robert Morris. Russell Long, played by Paul Hartman. Robert Byrd, played by Ivan Volkman. J. Hoover, David Hurst, Bob McNamara, Robert Goulet, John Connolly, Henderson Forsyth, Sergeant Trevor, John Neville, Jesse Unruh, Richard Shull, The Ghost, Lenny Baker, and Rogers Morton, John Raitt. I have a double chin. Is this a part of a facelift? Consultation with a plastic surgeon is a question-and-answer exchange between patient and doctor. Most informative book ever. Dr. Ralph Dicker and Dr. Victor R. Syracuse, two eminent New York plastic surgeons, discuss everything in the field of authority. This unique book is your private consultation. It will give you confidence to approach plastic surgery with intelligence. Lead every man and woman to a new look and a new outlook. 99 bookstores or write N.H. Nelson Hall, Publishers. 325 West Jackson Boulevard, Chicago, Illinois, 60606. Sports Illustrated. The moments that define Super Bowl. Fuck, I'm not bad at Roman numerals. Which one is that? 57. The moments that define Super Bowl 57. The magnitude of what happened last night's game may feel like a blur now, so let us break it down. Football season coming to a close, another Super Bowl disappears in the rearview mirror. Beyond the game, last night left us with many questions about both teams' directions. After leading the team to a devastating loss, head coach Scott Frost's career may be on the clock. Even despite their win, the Washington Kennedys have problems of their own. With MVP RG3 suffering potentially debilitating injury, they may be on the lookout for a new star player. Yet when confetti rained down, the fans roared. RG3 lifted that trophy overhead from the stretcher. All those questions felt meaningless. The Washington Kennedys have finally done it. After two prior attempts, they secured a historic three-peat and a shutout against the New England Patriots. So let's focus on the moments that made the night meaningful. Tragically, in the first of the Griffin and Bush bromance. Tragically, in the first order, the Kennedys quarterback, Robert Griffin III, suffered an injury, leaving him with a torn ACL, forcing his removal from the game. Remarkable show of shortsmanship, a so-called Patriots fan, President Bush, visited Griffin down at the beach shortly after halftime. Griffin said this when asked about the president's exchange during post-game interview. It was humbling for sure. Speaking of the historic first of the president's visit to a bowl game. Truthfully, I think it's what we needed. You know, he didn't show up for himself. Sports shouldn't be about politics, and I'm glad he didn't let any views separate us. Griffin added, he asked if I could add a cast he could sign. He said he brought a Sharpie down everything, inspiring sparse laughter in the room. After a pause, Griffin inserted, I think he was joking. The president and MVP continued their pleasantries through the night, with the president retweeting Griffin's celebratory tweet on the POTUS Twitter handle. Humbled. God wins. Griffin's kind post-game words must not have reached these fans, however, who burnt an effigy of the president in the streets of Richmond later that night. Broadway invades Boston. Though no one hopes for an artist to bomb in front of the largest audience in the country, critics' expectations for Jake Novak were set at historic lows. However, when he opened with the title track from Things That Never Were, all grabs of anyone watching related to it instantaneously. Novak proved that he had just as much right to headline the halftime show as even the hottest stars like Rush and Mumford and Sons. Fucking Mumford and Sons leading the fucking halftime show. Oh god, that's the most fucked up thing I've read in this whole video. Novak brought a range of emotions with his set list, from the cheerful Las Vegas of a jury and the swore. Perhaps Novak's most memorable performance was reaching out his hand towards President Bush's seat in the audience, sinking hearts across the country. Through his performance, Novak used this field as a stage, bringing Bobby Kennedy to our TVs at home. Shoving his ensemble out of the way as they ran aimlessly through the field during the phone is ringing, Novak showed the terror of the Hughes affair through his expression that we just don't get during biannual election season broadcasts of a show. The unforgettable ads. It's been a ritual for some Americans to try and spot each Kennedy family cameo during the advertisements. Some advertising firms now go as far as to include the information of the family's agents with purchase of 30-second minutes of ad time in the package deal. Last night, astute Kennedy watchers could have achieved a new high score of some different family members appearing in a whopping 16 ads, not including Ford's new Kennedy F-250. The funniest, which immediately dominated the conversation on Twitter, the Everything app, was a sibling banter between Matthew and Joe III in their Sonic ad. Super Bowl is this again? Oh, yeah, this is the 2022 one. Okay. Oh, 2023 one, my bad. Was it Usher who did this one? No, that was Rihanna. Oh. I'm a big fan of Rihanna, but I'd take that over some theater shit. The most shocking reveal ever was saved for last. In the final ad break, John Kennedy Jr. made his first public appearance since 1995. After facing trial for dropping out of the 1992 presidential election after a bet with his brother, the president and Democratic nominee, John retreated from public life to protect his sister's career. The then newly appointed Secretary of State, Caroline Kennedy, who still holds the position today. While the politically astute debated the ethics of his appearance, the rest of the country was reminded of the first time when they were ever charmed by the ever-boyish looks of John from State Farm. John from State Farm. John from State Farm. John from State Farm. Okay, sure. With John emerging from his private life, the lid on the Kennedy's Pandora's box had opened wide. Many Kennedy watchers are placing bets online on who could appear next. Some eager fans using AI to imagine what ads RFK would be in if he were alive today. Yeah, sure. Let's look at this map again. Not much to really study now, is there? Look at the closest states. The closest state was Vermont. Only 20,000 votes separated us. Doesn't mean much when only 90,000 people voted. But, you know. Arizona, 28-point gap. Nevada, almost a 30-point gap. Idaho, that's 31 points. Alabama, that is a 40-point gap. And Ross Perot was ahead of the Republicans. We love that for Ross Perot, of course, but okay. The furthest state was Nebraska. Oh my fucking god. Oh. Well, can I even say Washington, D.C. voted to the right of Nebraska here? No one voted for Ross Perot or Howard Hughes in Washington, D.C. Well, any further reading? Well, let's go ahead and read this real quick. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, U.S. Department of Justice, Washington, D.C. Internal Memorandum to the President of the United States, Robert Kennedy, from Leo Cherney, Director. Subject to the use campaign activities of Clifford Irving. Date, August 2nd, 1972. Mr. President, as rising as industrialist Robert R. Hughes has, through means still not entirely understood by this office, secured the Republican nomination for President of the United States at the Las Vegas Convention. This has occurred without any confirmed public appearances, without participation in a single debate, without the candidate himself issuing so much as a statement of intent. Our findings indicate that the key orchestrator of his activities is Clifford Michael Irvin, an author and self-appointed intermediary who has now expanded his role to that of campaign surrogate, strategist, and in all practical terms, the man leading the Republican ticket. You may recall Mr. Irving's name from the Hughes autobiography published last year, alleged first-hand account that remains, despite beyond every reasonable doubt, widely believed. The book has transformed Hughes into something mythic, a messianic capitalist recluse, a billionaire-turned-prophet, an architect of destiny. Irving, who wrote it, has now leveraged that myth into something even stranger. He claims to be Hughes' closest aide, his only true conduit to the outside world. People believe him. Upon his return from Switzerland in January, Irving began laying the groundwork for this campaign, dropping Hughes' name into conversation with party officials, political financiers, and the press, constructing a narrative in which Hughes is the only man who can save the country from the morass of Washington. Our investigation suggests that he has spent the last 2 months embedding himself with various Republican networks, forging connections with disillusioned Goldwater donors, stealing internal RNC messaging, and in some cases, outright lifting strategy documents from their private offices. We suspect Irving has copied confidential donor lists, stolen polling information, and, most audaciously, hijacked state-level organizing structures meant for the eventual Republican nominee. Polling from the last 3 weeks suggests that a Hughes candidacy has cut deeply into the Republican electorate. In states where Irving has been most active, California, Nevada, Texas, polls is polling at nearly 48%. Republican officials, already struggling to mount a serious challenge to your re-election, are reportedly going all in on his candidacy. The RNC has no idea how to counter a candidate who may or may not even be running. Worse, they don't know if they're running against him or for him. We know he is lying. We know Hughes is not involved in any formal way, but we cannot prove it. Not yet. Intelligence reviews of media outlets suggest a coordinated effort to lend legitimacy to the campaign, despite no verified participation of Hughes. Op-eds and televised debates increasingly frame Hughes as a serious political figure rather than a fugitive from his own existence. Furthermore, this office has no confirmed sightings of Howard Hughes outside of controlled environments since 1968. Reports continue to place him at multiple locations within Nevada, with secondary intelligence suggesting he has not left the upper floors of certain private properties in years. Our best sources suggest he is one of his Las Vegas properties, possibly the Desert Inn or the Sands, but we cannot say for certain. What we do know is that he is physically and mentally deteriorating. Reports from our sources describe him as unrecognizable, emaciated, erratic, refusing to allow anyone in his presence without surgical masks and gloves, consumed by obsessive rituals, unwilling or unable to engage in direct conversation. We confirmed that Hughes' associates have planted decoys, imposters, hired men to resemble him just enough to keep the press chasing ghosts. These false Hugheses have been seen leaving casinos in the dead of night, dining in private rooms at exclusive clubs, checking into penthouse suites before vanishing by morning. These men have been strategically placed in key locations to throw off investigators, journalists, and we suspect even Hughes' own former allies. But the real Hughes does not leave a suite, the real Hughes does not speak, and yet we have received multiple accounts from those who have seen something. A figure at a window, bone-thin, covered in hair, watching, unblinking. A glimpse of something unwell. Or perhaps 5 or 6 people, not including us, who truly understand what's happening with Hughes. Irving is not one of them. Mr. President, I am advising immediate, full-scale action. This is beyond a campaign fraud case. It is beyond an election anomaly. What is happening is destabilizing, surreal, and, I believe, dangerous. We believe the Bureau should begin the following steps. Locating Irving. We currently believe he's operating out of Los Angeles, though he's been seen in New York and Miami in recent weeks. We've assigned personnel to track his movements and identify his network. We'll also begin investigating precisely how Irving accessed Republican strategy materials and donor information. If he has inside help, we will find it. Assessing how much Hughes actually knows. Direct contact with Hughes is likely impossible. We are monitoring his aides and legal representatives. If there's even a trace of real involvement, we need to know. Neutralizing the Hughes campaign. Irving's operation cannot be allowed to continue unimpeded. Every tool available to the Bureau must be used to disrupt and dismantle this movement before it reaches an irreversible momentum. We will continue to monitor and act where we can, but I would strongly advise preparing for the reality, however impossible it may seem, that Howard Hughes may not only appear on a ballot this fall, but may win. And I do not believe that anyone, least of all Hughes himself, knows what happens after that. The Bureau remains committed to ensuring the continued function of lawful democratic processes and will escalate efforts accordingly. The authorization of expanded operations is requested. A full updated intelligence report will be provided in 72 hours. Yours, Leo Cherney, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Oh, Jesus. What a fucking mess. Well, friends, I am going to go ahead and leave things here. Never has a victory felt so hollow. yeah, I'm going to leave things there, gang. But thank you as always for joining me. My name has been Mr. Doggo333. And I hope you'll join me for next time, where we go ahead and see what exactly was happening in the Hughes campaign and try to figure out another thing that never was. Thanks for watching. Like, so if you liked, dislike. If you didn't, leave comments feedback down in the comment section below, including any other alternate runs you want to see for things that never were. I'm really enjoying this mod. It's one of the few things I really want to play right now. It's that good. So if you want to see me do any other campaigns, runs, anything of the sort, leave in the comment section below. Do some achievement runs, have some fun there. As well as Kennedy. We'll be back with Morton probably tomorrow, whenever this is uploaded. But thanks for watching, gang. Sub button, notification bell to keep up with uploads. Check my various links down the description box below. And yeah, that's going to be it for now, my friends. My name has been Mr. Doggo333. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.